my dance, make it hurt.
What's up, Relentless Traders? It's your host, Surreal.
And Juan, and welcome to episode 11.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Today we're going to talk about situational awareness. I think it's a pretty important topic. One, you wanted to talk about it this week too.
Yeah,
So we'll get into that.
it's definitely been a huge factor for our trades, both intraday and long term. I think it's something
Hmm.
that we've spoken about and something we're going to touch up on, pretty in depth here for this episode because it's affecting us. I mean, it's affecting everybody in the market. Not just us,
Hmm.
but how we enter trades, smaller time frames, big time frames, how we're viewing potential long term swings. So I think
Yeah.
it's just super important for people to be aware of the entire situation when it comes to trades in general.
Yeah. That's great. So you could start us off if you want to go to the end of week review. Tell us about any trades you had this week.
Yeah. Honestly,
Oh, nice hoodie, by the way.
yeah, yeah. Look at this. So,
Reppin'.
so Surreal got these made. When was this? Last week.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, and we got the order in this week. He sent me my hoodies. I think I got them on Thursday. So comfortable.
Nice.
Uh,
They're
so
soft.
yeah, super soft, super soft. This is
They're exclusive. They're not for sale right now. We don't have merch out, so.
first iteration of them for sure. So we're getting there. I
Sick.
mean, this thing is. I mean, dude, I'll
It's
wear this.
soft, isn't it?
Yeah, I wear this thing everywhere for
Oh,
sure.
oh.
Woo.
All right, sorry. Go ahead
Ha,
with your charts.
moving into the kind of the charts here. So I kind of wanted to touch base for two trades I took this week. I honestly thought this was going to be a slower week. It started off kind of slow. I was just
Mhm,
kind of there. I didn't think I took trades Monday or Tuesday, and then I think Wednesday I had two, and then yesterday I had one. Um, and it actually turned out to be a pretty decent week for me.
mhm.
Not too bad. I'm not taking trades left and right. Maybe like I've stated before, I may be a day trader, but that doesn't mean I'm going to trade every day.
Yeah,
Um, so it's just kind of something that I've been kind of aware of and very in touch with myself. It's a day that I just find choppy, especially for like I said, my situational awareness.
mhm.
I'm just not going to touch anything because I'm going to get
Yeah,
burnt, 8 times out
yeah.
of 10, 9 times out of 10, whatever it is. Um, so kind of moving in, I was watching, I think Monday we had a distribution day. Tuesday was just kind of chop but Tuesday at the close we kind of set up for a small sort of rally day on Wednesday. I believe
Mhm.
that was the day we had some sort of rally. Um, or short covering, whatever you like to call it.
Yep,
Regardless,
yeah.
we rallied a little bit. Everything kind of gapped up Wednesday. I was watching AMD. We had a nice little level from the kind of daily perspective here. I was kind of setting
Mm,
up above 109.60. I trade typically off the 5 minute time frame. I know for a lot of people that's a lot of noise, but it's my preference.
mhm.
Um, and then something I had been working on for entries, something that you and we spoke about this at the beginning of the week too, because last weekend we had spoken and I got chopped up because my entries were either late, they were more on the FOMO side, like, oh, it's moving, and then I get in and then it reverses. It's like, okay, I could have top ticked it for the other side here, or bottom ticked it for the other side here.
Yeah,
So AMD started off below that key level that I was watching. It kind of was trying to hold VWAP, rejecting, recovered VWAP, and this is probably one of my favorite entries I've ever executed. Like, just period,
dang.
because I feel like I really nailed this entry. I was watching that break of that level. Was selling off. Well, it gapped up and it was kind of coming into that gap fill demand area on lower volume, and I knew the
The
second this
pullback?
yeah, I was pulling back on lower volume, and I was like, I know the second this thing turns up, it might want to go.
Mm,
um and I say might because nothing's for certain. So I saw this thing recover VWAP. It opened up, and you can see this lower wick on this next 5 minute candle just kind of come in, and then it instantly flipped. And on that instant, like, I saw it go from red straight to green, and it was like it's kind of like that little key in your head that just like
Hmm.
that trigger, and I'm like, there's no, I don't even have a question
You're
here,
you're
and I
subconsciously executing. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, "There's not even a question." I clicked the buy button, and then I it didn't look back. It didn't, and I'm trading options contracts, so these small moves right here, I mean, that's enough for me to get 30, forty
Hmm.
percent on a contract, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened here. That move right into that key level. Why would you want like we had this conversation when the key level things were happening back in December, right? You're like, why would you want to buy at the key level, right? The key levels of resistance at first, yeah,
Hmm.
just to start off. And a lot of the times they're fading those moves up into those resistance areas. So
Hmm.
why buy into those key levels anticipating a break with continuation when you could buy before that break and just sell into everybody who's trying to chase into that,
Hmm.
into that resistance break. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what I did here. And that, I sold it right into that key. I think I sold it at 109.50. I was anticipating that high day where it opened to be
Yeah.
resistance. That kind of matched up with my key level, and I sold it there. I think it moved up another 30 cents after that, maybe 40 cents, and then it
Hmm.
faded the rest of it. Like
Yeah.
it just kind of,
Faded.
yeah, it faded the rest of the day. So I was just like, I got my 30, 40%. It was a small contract, but I had been taking losers all throughout March, small losers, right? I had been keeping my losers even smaller because I knew I was
Yeah.
getting kind of chopped up there.
Yeah.
And this was just, it was just, I mean, honestly, a beautiful win. Like small contract, 30%. I think I made like 30, 40 bucks on it, but it was like a $70 contract. So,
Yeah.
I mean, overall, that was a very, very, very smooth win. And
Yeah.
then yesterday Friday I took Enphase. I had been watching that key level on Enphase too. This thing kind of put in a key level here. It didn't have resistance until about 190. And then it had, as you can tell from my daily chart, it had tapped this a couple times. That's why I call it key level resistance. It opened up right beneath it, and it was kind of moving up and down, red, green, red, green, red, green. And then just all of a sudden, like volume just spiked. It like was a heavy spike, and I actually got a very late entry because I was still the toss was still updating contracts, and I was trying to figure out which contract was going to be the best because I was trying to figure out volume and all that. And so I saw it break as soon as it broke. I took it as the break was happening, and I was like, okay, this thing could easily like just as easily come back in on me. I got to be very very tight with my risk here because it was a bigger contract. That was the only contract that had really stood out to me. So it pushed, it opened up here, and then it pushed off, and I sold into this wick right here
Hmm.
for an easy 20%. But the contract was a little bigger. I think the contract was like a 350 $350 contract. So I made my 20%, but it was a bigger winner, uh, for money wise. So that's kind of where I sat. As you can tell, this thing, tried to recover that key level, and then as we've spoken about before, sell into resistance, right? I
Hmm.
mean, this thing
Yeah.
faded hard with the market the rest of the day.
Yeah. You got to use that area where you know there's going to be liquidity and where you're probably going to get at least a test
Yeah,
to just kind of like take that profit in this environment.
correct. It's mostly liquidity grabs at this
Gotcha.
point. So, that's kind of where I'm sitting at. I think I'm only like I think I'm only like $30 from my equity highs. So I
Yeah,
mean,
that's awesome. I mean,
that's
in comparative too to like the indexes, I mean, we closed so bad on Friday. Like everybody thought on the weekly, from a weekly perspective, even I did. Like moving in, I was like, hey, we could rally up here to like I have a trend line on the weekly, the larger time frame, and try and test the maybe the 50 SMA on the weekly on the indexes. And Friday they didn't care. They sold not super hard. Like it wasn't overwhelming amount of selling, but there was selling into close, and it closed with a very nasty candle. So. Um, with the indexes being down and you're right at your equity highs for the year, right? For the year?
yeah for the year.
Yes, I mean that's big time, man. I mean, you keep stacking that and building that equity curve up and you're going to be sitting pretty, you know what I mean, the rest of the year. You keep it
Yeah.
up.
So
Uh
that's kind of where I'm sitting at. I know you have a couple things you wanted to go over too, so let's
yeah,
switch into
yeah.
yours.
So, I mean, my chart, sorry, it looks a little messy. I'll go to the larger time frame. So, gold has been really standing out to me, and maybe we'll do the ETF to get a bigger picture. So, looking at a monthly time frame here, we can really see, this chart goes back to about 2004. This is the gold ETF on Spider. we can see it's made a big move up, set a high back in 2011. So we've had over a 10-year cup and handle here. Um, that is massive, massive consolidation. Pulled back from that 2011 high, formed a range, nice, beautiful cup, came back up right to the highs about August of 20, set this high here around 187 area, 186, pulled back, and it's about an 18-month handle that's been setting, and it actually broke out. I don't really want to trade the gold. I need a little bit more leverage with a smaller account. So I was looking at the futures, which are very leveraged. If you haven't traded futures and things like that, and you don't have a margin account, you can't trade it anyways. I wouldn't really take too much into this. But for me as a swing trader, with such a big consolidation and setup like this, I really thought about it this past week. Um, and when something like this, when a trade like this comes along, you gotta find a way to jump on. And if we think about what I just said there, it makes sense, right? Everybody's like on the crypto train and all this, and everybody thinks gold's old and boring. But I have a question to you with like everything that's bad right now. With the indexes below their 50 SMA on the weeklies, we've been selling off in stocks, and you have gold, something that's tangible, a metal, a commodity. Commodities are ripping, and gold has a 10-year consolidation pattern. Like I've seen tons of cup and handles work before. Commodities are ripping, and this thing is like about to break out of a huge base. You don't think, right now that gold could be ripping, but that's what as traders we kind of have to do, especially as swing traders where we're trying to capture pieces of a trend. So I really broke that down and thought about it. I'm like, I got to get risk on somewhere in here because we're still not out of the base yet. But as soon as this happens and people see gold breaking out, really put that into perspective. There's a ton of volume here on this weekly candle, where it looks like a shooting star at resistance at the top of the base. And that's kind of to be expected. People want to take off profit. They want to unload some of that position into, the obvious area where there's going to be resistance. It's the first time it's testing it up here. We broke out of a tight consolidation below the 1900 area on the futures. So, it's expected that there would be resistance there. That doesn't mean it's over, though. It actually means it's better. If this pulls back and makes a higher low, I'm like licking my chops. So I got one contract on this week on the micro because I have a very small account. Margin per contract's like $792. So with my account being at around 7,000 right now, with margin, I could probably do a max of about 15 contracts. So I have one on now just to get my attention on it. And I'm looking at like, for me, the trade's pretty much invalidated. I'm looking at the high of this congestion area right around here. And if we think about it, this is a whole base here where it consolidated and there was accumulation. So I really don't want to see it invalidate 1900. I don't think it should come all the way. It may, and then might invalidate the trade for me. But I really want to see it make a higher low somewhere in here because that tells me that the obvious profit taking happened, right? Shook some people off, profit taking off. So if it finds demand in here and bounces and makes a higher low, that lets me know that buyers are there waiting and they want to jump in on this trend because as soon as we pivot through 2K, I mean, let's go to the monthly. And I just showed you this before we started talking, Juan.
Yeah, this thing has
You do it, if you're not familiar with a cup and handle pattern, typically it's a measured move from the base of the cup to the top of the cup. So we could say anywhere from about 61% to 100%, which is 2578 to 2935 would be a good target. I kind of have a 45-degree kind of like trend line channel because we could see here with these higher lows in the handle, it almost if I duplicated this and I just moved it here, you can kind of align these highs here. Yep. So that would be somewhere if this breaks out, that would be a good area to kind of shave some off into the strength because you might have to stomach a pullback or something in here. If it really wants to turn up and go parabolic, it could hit in this box, but I want to get size on coming through the 1995, 2000 area. I want to get size on in there after this makes a higher low. And I want to shave at least half or 75, 80% of my size into this trend line here, which is about a 300-point move on gold. That's really good for futures. Like that would be insane gains for my account.
Yeah.
So when something comes along like this, you really gotta focus up. So I bought one contract to kind of risking about 100 points. So it's about $1,000, which is pretty risky for my account side. It's a good amount of my account. But like I saw a lumber trade last year, and it went straight up, and it did the same thing. It broke out, it faked people out, it pulled back, and it never looked back after that. And so that really threw me off. And then I look at this pattern, I'm like, this is a huge pattern. It's finding resistance, at this level. But I know that like when that happens, if it looks like a false breakout, if it makes a higher low and it resets up, that's actually really, really, really strong indication because as soon as we get through the 2000 mark, what do you think everybody's going to be doing? They're going to be like, "Holy crap, gold's going crazy." And everybody's going to pile into gold, and then that's how you get the breakout. Everybody sees it and they chase it. I'm trying to get risk on before the pivot in anticipation of this huge pattern working. You have to have conviction and confidence in this, but still, I'm managing my risk and trying to wait for it to show me that it's gonna. If it isn't, you know, it's March 12th. This still could break out on this candle on the monthly. So I'm just trying to be patient before I get more risk on to where it really shows me it wants to go. And as soon as I see what I need to see, I'm like getting size on, and I'm going to try and aggressively move my stop to break even. And I'm going to let it ride, and we'll see what happens. So
Yeah, and I think you took a go trade on Sunday too, right? Was it Sunday
I
or Friday?
did. I did with the same anticipation. Yeah. I kind of got on Sunday. I got some risk on. What day was this? 3/7. So about in here, and I sold some into this strength. It was like an $800 gain. It was pretty decent, but I was really looking at that major move, and I thought about it. I sold it into strength, and I'm like, you know what? Like this is the first, exactly what I just said. It was the first, breakout, and then it pulls back in, and we see these wicks here on the. This is a daily. We see these wicks here of accumulation right at the pivot line of around 1990, 2000 area, and that shows me that there's massive volume on the breakout. Then there was some profit taking, and now we have buyers like they're licking their chops, stepping up here. So I really want to see it hold this area, and then I want to see us pick up some momentum to the upside and start trending and breaking out. And hopefully, we can get a piece of that move. So that's where my focus is going to be the next week or so, on top of equities as well. But I really need to make sure I have capital ready for this trade. I should have been in from down here, but you got to build conviction. You got to focus up when you see something, and because you never know, till these candles print, you never know. So,
That's a good that's good to like kind of lead us into our topic for the week too, because
mhm.
that just goes to show how important it is to be situationally aware of like what's happening in the market, what's happened before, like patterns that are repeatable, that are tradable, that you can, places where you can control your risk.
Mhm.
And we've spoken about that lumber trade a lot. I mean, you saw it, you put, I think you paper traded it, or you attempted
Yeah.
to paper trade it, and you got stopped out on the pullback, and only for it to like do exactly what gold is seeming like it's gonna do right now,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It looked like it's pulling back into those highs, because of, like you said, the profit taken. It pulled back
Mhm.
into that demand area, and then I mean, lumber went absolutely parabolic.
Yeah, it did. It did. It's like, and I look back at that, and that would have been so much money to make, even on just one or two contracts, because it went straight up for a month straight, and that would have been almost, depending on how many contracts you had, that was a huge trade. That was almost going to be a six-figure trade on like maybe $5,000-$10,000 uh
Position.
position. And I just remember that, and I was like, oh man, like I don't, you always think like I'll never see a trade like that ever again. And then I see the gold pattern, I'm like, it's like it's the same thing,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's the same thing again. And uh and so I kind of second guessed myself when I had the range consolidation, because like, oh man, it's futures. Like I know it. Like I would try and day trade futures last year, and I lost a bit of money. So I'm like, I don't really know if I want to. But I'm a swing trader, and this is one of the swing patterns that I trade, and it's a huge pattern, huge consolidation. So you got to be aware, and you got to find somewhere to get risk on in a safe place when it shows you it wants to work. And I mean,
Yeah.
because it could go straight up every day, right? It
Yep.
could, who knows? Who knows what's gonna? You gotta. That's why you got to take the trade and get on. So I got one contract on, so I'm aware on it. I'm watching it, and then as soon as it shows me what I need, I'm gonna go for it. We'll see. I'll manage my risk. I'm gonna try and keep it as small and tight as I can,
Yeah.
and then get some size on. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh man,
Um,
it's gonna
but
be a
yeah,
big
let's
one.
yeah, Let's talk about the topic though of situational awareness. Like, what does that like mean to you, especially for you? Like, because I learned it. We learned it from Stockby. You know, putting a name on it.
Yeah.
And but for you as like someone who's a pilot, like, how would you describe like flying planes? Because that's what it came from. Them being situational aware with the weather. Like you actually being a pilot. How would you describe and like relate that to the market as well, like with weather and all that?
Yeah, so that's that's kind of something I was gonna go. I was gonna touch base on too because they call pilots junior weathermen, um, because that's I mean at any given point, I mean you have to be completely aware of your the entire situation regarding every single leg of every single flight. You have to know, what the weather is ahead of time, or what the forecast is. At what especially me, I don't have like my X amount of ratings. I just have my
Hmm.
private pilot's license. I have to be aware, where clouds are. If I need to get flight following from ATC, all that stuff. What's gonna make my flight the safest?
Mm,
That's really what situational awareness comes down to. What in that entire situation, what what could potentially make it dangerous, and what can I do to correct that potentially dangerous situation?
that's really good. So like let's break that down. So you know how I do it. I practice for me, and again I got this from Stockby, is at the start of the day, and I just started doing this more recently. I would like look at the indexes and I'd be like, okay, like, not trying to predict, but what are the chances of if we bounce here or if we roll over? So for you, how would you relate that? Like if you're, you said you're being a pilot and you're going to take your flight, we could relate that to your trading plan for the day.
Yeah,
And you could do that off your individual setups when you do your charting.
sure.
But in terms of like, in these conditions where 9 out of 10 stocks are following the indexes anyways, you know, what is a way, or how do you think you're going to use that going forward? Like being situational aware, like, okay, you said, perfect example, you said, I'm not looking to buy breakouts at key levels in this environment, right? And so you can pivot and say, oh, I'm gonna buy lower and use that to sell into strength or something
Correct.
like that. Or I'm not looking to take longs today because the indexes look like they're gonna roll over. So
Correct.
how do you
Yeah.
think you're gonna practice situational awareness moving forward, do you think? Like what would you say to yourself the night before or the morning of when you're checking the indexes, and what are you thinking?
For me, it's always about zooming out to the bigger picture. If you focus on the very, fine minute little like, oh, this bar was bigger than this bar, or this, I don't, I don't, I don't like. I like looking at the like zoom out to the bigger picture. When I'm on a flight too, I like to zoom like, if you zoom out and take the overall picture, what's my airport elevation? How big is the runway? What's the weather like? If I go and I say, oh, there's gonna be a light tower here that's
Mhm.
500 feet tall, or 1500 feet tall. And I'm just worried about that light tower that's in this one stationary spot, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then I'm putting my sole effort and focus into that one light tower. I'm gonna miss the details of the bigger picture.
Mhm.
What if I miss, the forecast where it's gonna be just cloudy and overcast all day at my destination airport in
Mhm.
somewhere that I not just illegally I'm gonna have to land because I'm not legally allowed to fly in that weather situation, but like that's gonna cause a potential dangerous situation for both me and whatever passengers I have, right? So zooming out and really looking at the bigger picture, how do the indexes look like?
Mhm.
How did yesterday finish? We saw days where it was like it started off good and then it puts in a high volume like shooting star candle on the
Mhm.
daily where it just like it breaks through all the supports, through all the trend lines, and you're just like that doesn't look good at all. And then you go into next day and it tries to recover, hits that trend line. It's like this is a resistance zone. People are just gonna sell into from yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Anybody who didn't sell yesterday, this is just a selling opportunity. And guess what happens at that resistance line, or at that trend line resistance right there? It just rolls over again. So really zooming out to that bigger picture is what I want to do. I'm taking longs in this market, but I'm not taking them through resistance. I'm selling them
Hmm.
into the resistance too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like really being able to flip being able to flip that situation in your
Hmm.
favor, I
Hmm.
think is super important.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, like I used to take those key level breakouts into like just past those resistance lines.
Hmm.
And what, you see my dog in the background?
I do. I see him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's getting busy.
Yeah. And so now it's not about that. Now it's about, just selling it into that resistance and calling it a day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think let's bring that back into and talk about like how to apply what you explained to is like not getting tunnel vision on one thing. So like when you're prepping the night before for stocks, if you're an intraday trader or you're a swing trader, like I would say like it was really tough for me in this environment to like swing anything, but it's not impossible. Other traders are doing it, but like Juan was saying is like if you're focused on a light tower, right? If I'm just focused on the 1 hour chart on the indexes and I'm not taking into account that on the weekly we're under a major moving average making, about to arc and roll over where it looks like it's going to roll over. That comes with experience, but I would say to get better at situational awareness, you have to in this environment, especially where majority of the stocks are following the indexes right now, and we're not in a bull market where some things could be working and da 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 da. You have to be quicker in this environment, and also you need to pay attention to multiple time frames and understand what we're doing. Like on the daily, is the index oversold on the daily, and we look like we could bounce? Like we did on February 24th. We were really oversold that day. We gapped down and then ripped higher for 2 or 3 days in a row. That's situational awareness, seeing that we're oversold and tons of buying is coming into the market into with time and experience, you'll see that from extremely oversold, you get these vicious, counter trend rallies. So that's something where you could take advantage as me as a swing trader or one, take advantage of trying to find stocks to take long when that vicious short covering and some buying is coming in. That's situational awareness, knowing that like, hey, the market's been down 4 days in a row, red. What do you think the probabilities that it's going to go down even more? The pendulum, like we were talking about, of the risk to reward starts to swing. When too many people are on one side of the boat, especially in a bear market, you get the vicious short covering, you get the vicious rally the other way. That's why the chop eats people up. That's situational awareness. There's so many variables and so many layers. Like Juan was saying, you got to know what the weather is going to be for the week. What it's going to be for the week. What is it going to be for the day? What is my flight path? And that all it directly equates to trading to like, okay, what is the indexes doing? What is my trading plan? What are some of the strategic setups I'm going to use if I think the market's going to bounce here and continue for 2 days? Do I want to be trying to short stuff if we're in a vicious, you know, short covering rally? And then knowing that when it starts to get to 3 or 4 days rally, hey, situationally and aware, we're still in a downtrend. Maybe I want to start to look for trying to test some shorts today or the next day or avoid this day because we're arcing off of a bounce and we're getting tight. We're going to have a range chop day before we get the sell off day. Not getting aggressive on that chop day of when we rallied 3 days in a row, we're hitting resistance, and we're chopping that. That's situational awareness. It takes time, but for me, I think this new thing I'm doing where I'm studying every day, like I'm posting my index charts, studying them in this type of environment. Me as a swing trader, when we get back to a bull market again, I'm going to be more focused on the individual stocks. But for right now, this volatility forces you to a smaller time frame, and I'm really focusing on the indexes to kind of do my intraday trading, my quick hits, because that's where it's going to be safest. So that's what I'm looking at is how to apply it is to be aware of it first, study the indexes, make notes, and it is really there's only three things that can happen. We can rally, we can chop, or we can roll over. So just keep it simple. Like what are the probabilities? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You got to look. You got to study every morning, you got to practice it. It's like looking out the window and saying, "Well, it looks like might be stormy and rainy today, so let me just prep my jacket." But if the sun comes out, we start rallying. I also have plans for that too. So it's
Yeah.
flexible, but you're aware and you're planning for it. We're not trying to predict. You're just trying to be aware of levels or zones of where something might happen, and then when you see it, you're able to preemptively, with your awareness, react and employ your specific setups. If you can short off a key level or short off short off supply, you employ those tactics if you see them rolling over on the index, you know, because you plan for it. So I think it's really an underrated thing, and people confuse it with trying to predict what's going to happen. It's not about predicting. It's just about being aware of the probabilities, having plans for them, and then reacting when it happens.
Yeah, and I think people really, people who don't trade misconstrue the trading mentality. I really like that you said, we're not here to predict. We're just here to react. Because a lot of people will say, trading is gambling, but it's not. I mean, it's we're like you said, we're not here to predict. We know our areas of supply, we know our areas of demand, we know our supports, resistances, whatever it is, and all we're doing is we're taking positions based on risk to reward. That's all we're
Mm-hmm.
doing. We're not saying it is going to go up because we got a long, or it's going to go down because we got a short. We hope it always goes in our favor, obviously, right? But I mean, all we're doing is we're taking positions based on risk to reward. And I mean, knowing your situational awareness is going to help exponentially with that. If
Yeah.
we're super extended to the long side and, those bars are getting smaller, 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 there's no reason it can't continue to go up, but it's going to start either getting choppy or it's getting ready to pull back.
Yeah.
And same thing to the downside. Like just keeping that overall picture in mind is going to be so important. And
Yeah.
it's very important even on the intraday time frames. Everybody who's getting chopped up on the bigger time frames and switched over to day trading. I mean, these patterns are repeatable, everywhere on all time frames. If these bars are getting smaller, 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 expect more chop or it's going to consolidate before it moves again. Like, you can control risk in those areas or, whatever it is that you're doing for your setups.
And I think by practicing that too every morning, kind of looking at the indexes and practicing your technicals with that too. It's gonna every time it's like riding a bike, right? You're gonna fall the first couple times. You're not gonna know what you're doing, but you're bringing awareness and focus to it by forcing yourself to do it every morning. Even if you're wrong, like you don't have to pick a bias and stick to it, but just practice it. Be like, man, the indexes here look really oversold. Like maybe if I see some buying coming in, or if I see stocks start to bottom, and then maybe I see a higher low if they're, because we're so far extended, 3 days on the index, that might be a good area to go long. If you have a demand zone on a stock, you see a higher low or a reversal pattern. That's awareness. So you gotta practice that. You gotta practice whatever your setup or your strategy is. Practice planning. You're not only picking the stocks and what your setups are on stock basis, but marry that to what the indexes could potentially do too, because you're going to stack more probabilities in your favor versus being the guy who's like, I want to take Nvidia long this week or tomorrow. Like, okay, how does that help you if you want to take Nvidia long, but the overall market just rallied 3 days in a row and it's about to roll over into supply? You know, that's a way, like you're banging your head against the wall. You're not paying attention to the bigger picture here. It's like stack the probabilities in your favor, especially when the market's volatile and choppy like this and you have to be quicker, and you're gonna get better at it by practicing and actually looking, but you have to bring awareness to it. You have to practice it every day. Even go back. For me personally, I'm gonna go back and do a write up, back from like November, and I'm gonna go candle by candle and do a paragraph on it and say what do I think is going to happen that day, if that makes sense. I'm going to go back test it pretty much to get practice, to get reps in, and then click on the next candle, and then do a write up. And so that way I can get more reps in to practice it. Like, the indexes on the weekly are below this SMA. On the daily, it looked like this. And just to practice that, because, I see other traders who they're so good at it. Oh, like the market's so oversold. We can expect a couple day bounce. And then what happens? The market rallies for a couple days. And they get some swings on in stocks for a couple days, or so having that awareness just overall keeps the bigger picture in line, like you said, Juan, and you're gonna take less mistakes out. You're gonna be able to deploy higher probability setups in the right direction.
Yeah.
But you got to practice it. You got to focus on it. But it's so underrated. I would say situational awareness to me is foundational in a sense that like it's right there with like risk management.
That's a hundred
That's
percent.
yeah, it's gonna keep you out of a lot of trouble, and you just got it's another skill. You just got to practice it every morning. Say what are the indexes gonna do? How if I'm intraday, this is mainly for intraday trading too, because I feel like once we get back into a bull market, it's going to help you even more, because how many times have people been swing trading and the index pulls back a couple days, and you're like, at least for me, that's what happened last year. But that could help you even then be like, hey, we're rallying. Like this is expected. We rallied six, a week or two in a row. Like that situational awareness is not going to only help you in tough times, but it'll help you stay in winning positions longer too.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a really good topic. There was a lot there. Is there anything else you had on it? One that you
No,
that
I
you really want to
mean,
bring out?
I think that's it. I mean, same way you do it for your longer time frames too.
Hmm.
I mix and match my equities with my
Yeah,
indexes, and there's so much with situational awareness. You have to be able to put it into practice yourself, and
yeah. Just
there's
do it.
no
Just
yeah,
start doing it.
there's no cheat codes for it. I mean, you're never gonna be right 100% of the time, right? Like it's
Hmm.
not gonna happen but that's the purpose. Like you're not supposed to like the purpose is not for you to be right all the time.
Right.
The purpose is just to keep the bigger picture into context and be able to flip on a dime if you have to.
Yeah, and stack those probabilities. And like you're saying, if you look out the window and it looks like it might rain, well, it might not rain, but at least you can grab your jacket real quick if you need it.
Yeah.
That's just you just have a plan. Have a plan, and you're prepared, and you're aware of what might happen instead of just trying to trade the stock you want to trade in the direction you think it should go. Like once you understand that you're not here to predict, you're here to react majority of the time, but you're planning. You're not predicting, you're planning for what may happen and trying to take the highest probability direction. But if you're wrong, that's why we use stops. And it's
Yep.
just it takes time. So really important skill, I think.
Yeah, that was a good one. Packed.
Yeah. Awesome, man. We could call it there then. Super happy to be back from vacation too and trading, and hopefully we'll get into some better conditions in the market, and we'll
Someday.
keep on. Yeah.
We'll be doing this and we'll just say next week, hopefully.
Yeah, next week hopefully. It could be like market could be like this the whole year, but
Oh, yeah.
all right guys. Well, remember manage your risk, stay focused and be relentless. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.